The House of Mirrors, Epstein, Finance, and the Global Web of Power. In the mythology built around Jeffrey Epstein, he is often described as a hedge fund manager, a mysterious billionaire, or a sex trafficker who preyed on vulnerable young women. All of these are true, but they are fragments of a much larger picture. To understand Epstein is to understand the machinery of global power itself. The convergence of intelligence agencies, organized crime, political dynasties, philanthropic foundations, and above all, the dark channels of finance that allow illicit wealth to circulate freely under the cover of respectability. Whitney Webb's meticulous research in One Nation Under Blackmail lays bare this architecture. She demonstrates that Epstein was not an anomaly, but the logical product of a system that thrives on secrecy, corruption, and the laundering of money and influence. He was less a lone predator than a financial node, a washing machine for the world's elites. The intelligence, finance nexus. Epstein's ties to intelligence, from the CIA and Mossad to MI6, are not just about espionage in the traditional sense. Intelligence agencies have long relied on covert financial channels to fund black operations, destabilize governments, and maintain leverage over allies and enemies alike. Epstein provided both the honey trap and the money trap. His supposed hedge fund was no ordinary investment vehicle. Few clients could ever be named, and his wealth was never explained through conventional returns. Instead, it functioned as a clearinghouse. Offshore entities in the Virgin Islands, shell companies registered through Delaware law firms, and accounts hidden in European tax havens created the infrastructure. Epstein's job was to move money where it needed to go, laundering funds for intelligence-backed operations, recycling oligarch cash into American real estate, and disguising mafia-linked capital as philanthropy. In this way, Epstein bridged the worlds of espionage and finance, transforming political favors, sexual blackmail, and illicit wealth into an inseparable bundle. The political dynasties, Clintons, Trump, and beyond. The Clinton Foundation, often hailed as a beacon of global philanthropy, fits seamlessly into this model. Ostensibly a charity, it has operated as a financial sponge for foreign donations, corporate bribes, and blurred quid pro quos. Epstein, deeply entangled with the Clintons, offered precisely the kind of offshore vehicles and secrecy jurisdictions needed to move this capital under the radar. Donald Trump, too, was no stranger to this economy. His Atlantic City casinos were notorious for money laundering, providing a playground for mafia networks and oligarchs alike. His relationship with Epstein was not just social, but financial. Both men operated in the twilight zone where politics, organized crime, and shadow banking converge. In both cases, Epstein provided leverage. With the Clintons, it was financial intermediation cloaked as philanthropy. With Trump, it was real estate and casino-linked laundering. In both, it was compromise, sexual, financial, and political, stored like files in a vault. The foundations, charitable fronts for illicit capital. Philanthropy is one of the most effective disguises for illicit finance. Foundations, from the Clinton Foundation to the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, allow tax-free accumulation and redistribution of wealth, while masking the origins of funds. Epstein was deeply connected to this world. His so-called interest in science and genetics was not a personal quirk, but a gateway into the foundation economy. Grants, donations, and research endowments are not only about altruism. They are vehicles to launder reputation and recycle funds. Epstein cultivated relationships with Gates, MIT's Media Lab, and numerous universities not simply because of his curiosity, but because academia and science funding are ideal laundering hubs, difficult to audit, shielded by prestige, and legitimized by the veneer of progress. Foundations serve as financial laundromats. Money can be routed from an oligarch's offshore trust, funneled through a foundation grant, and emerge as a research project or humanitarian initiative. By the time it surfaces, the trail is clean. Epstein's genius was in positioning himself as the middleman of this system. The mafia connection, organized crime in the shadows. From Robert Maxwell, Ghislaine's father and a suspected Mossad asset who looted pension funds, to American mafia networks that infiltrated Atlantic City, organized crime is inseparable from Epstein's story. Organized crime needs laundering. Intelligence needs plausible deniability. Politicians need funding. Epstein stood at the intersection. Real estate in New York and Palm Beach, offshore trusts, and foundation donations were all part of the circuit. Like Meyer Lansky before him, Epstein understood that the most powerful criminals wear suits, run banks, and sit on charitable boards. Murders, suicides, and the price of silence. Epstein's death, widely dismissed as a suicide, fits into a long tradition of suspicious silences. From mafia hits disguised as accidents to intelligence-linked murders framed as suicides, the pattern is clear. When the laundromat risks exposure, the machine eliminates the problem. The financial stakes were too high to allow Epstein to testify. His vault of compromat, both sexual and financial, implicated politicians, royalty, billionaires, and bankers. By silencing him, the system preserved itself. Yet the machinery continues, untouched, and operating through the same offshore circuits, foundations, and respectable institutions. Conclusion: the living legacy of Epstein's financial empire. To view Epstein as a disgraced financier or a rogue predator is to misunderstand the nature of the world we live in. He was a function, not an anomaly. He served as the human face of a system that launders not only money, but power itself. The offshore economy, the foundations, the hedge funds without clients, the shell corporations and scientific grants, these remain intact. The Clintons, Trump, Gates, intelligence agencies, and mafia-linked oligarchs all continue to operate in the same circuits. Epstein may be dead, but the laundromat he embodied hums along, bigger than any one man. In Whitney Webb's words, to study Epstein is to study the architecture of power, and that architecture reveals a truth our media avoids. The real-world order is not built on democracy or philanthropy, but on a seamless loop of blackmail, finance, and shadow networks. Epstein was the concierge of this underworld, and his absence changes nothing about the system he served.